stories and just sharing and letting people know about different people and things as those sorts.
Try not to make the struggle part too big.
Yeah, okay, no problem.
Um, but yeah, this is Jaasmaan over here. Uh, I'm a musician, uh, currently, not working, I would say, anywhere in that sense. Performing, whatever is coming in terms of, let's say, the gigs. If any composition opportunities come, let's say, even if it's for my own personal uh, album and all of that, I do that. At the same time, I'm studying music at York, doing my bachelor's of music. Uh, and yeah, it's been on from past like 7, 8 years.
Mm.
Um, yeah.
So let's take out down memory lane and talk about some of your hardships and struggles if you want to share some of those, give some insights.
I mean, it's all about that, to be very honest. That's
Yeah.
why, as I said, like, I was very surprised when you were like, can you come on the podcast? And I'm like, isn't that a successful people thing? Uh,
No. No.
uh, so, no, I have my fair share of, things I'm very thankful about. And I wouldn't say that I'm not doing anything in terms of music. I know probably what I'm doing is also something a lot many want to do. Um, so yes, I definitely acknowledge, some of the privileges which I have in terms of being able to, let's say, be able to sing um, and make it as my prime
Yeah.
um career. Although I think it's always the case when you take up something um, which isn't something, let's say, the mainstream sort of like a
Yeah.
profession. And also, if on top of that, if you're not coming from a background where, you know, you're not coming from that rich background, or
Yeah.
probably from that background where somebody in your family is into that particular field, uh, it's always more than the struggle. It's about that confusion. I mean, you don't know where to go to. You don't know what to do. Um, so those things have been there. I started performing professionally in 2014 back in
Mm.
India. Um, and at that time, I was just focusing on the singing part of the things. I wasn't into composition and all at that time. Um, but obviously, I was hearing, I would always pay a lot of attention to, um, every time I would listen to the song or, the scores of the movies and anything, I would pay a lot of attention to pretty much everything, particularly the bass lines. Bass is something which is, I would say, my favorite thing when it
Yeah.
comes to, all the instruments and all of that, string sections and all of that. So, um I was hearing a lot without knowing that I'm hearing, without knowing what that is, even without knowing the terminologies. That string section, I wouldn't even know that.
Yeah.
All of that would be violence.
Yeah.
Sound very stupid saying that. Uh, but I wouldn't know what a brass section is, right?
Yeah.
To me, all of that would be, something like saxophone and all of that. So yeah, but there was this unconsciously that exposure happening, um, and I think what made me take the composition aspect more seriously, first of all, obviously that it would come very naturally to me. Um, I find actually being able to create a melody and put the arrangements in my head, something which comes very naturally to
Wow.
me, rather than even for singing I have to uh, do some of the, let's say, the brainstorming thing. But for let's say on the composition side, it just happens in a way. For lyrics, I still have to do a lot of brainstorming and all of that. Uh, and second reason why composition happened was also because I wasn't getting any songs. So, it was more like a necessity which forced me. I mean, there wasn't any composer willing to give me any songs. There wasn't any work coming my way, and I was, as an artist, it's that suffocation which starts brimming inside. That
So what was like the limiting beliefs you had on yourself during that process?
I mean, firstly, as I said, there is a whole lot process to it, and I was like, because I'm not exposed to that process, because not growing up around that atmosphere, not being born in a big city, uh, not even aware about any of the technical things like which softwares to use, how to do that, uh, and that would make me like feel that probably I'm not good for nothing, right?
Mm.
There isn't anything I'm good for. Um, and you constantly put your and plus I think also, as is the case with some people, that some people are super overconfident and all of that, there is this other section of people who are always super underconfident,
Yeah.
and that's me. um, yes, it would stem from my craving to make myself better, not being satisfied with what I was doing, or I would aim for something, um, that I want to make myself better and all of that.
Yeah.
And obviously, when you're hearing all these professional production songs and all of that coming out, you're like, you definitely do not sound like that.
Mm.
Well, obviously, there's a lot of technical stuff which goes into that. It's not just the musical part of it. So sometimes it starts putting you down, and you're like,
Comparing yourselves to others and, oh, I'm in this path. Why can't I go there?
that also in a way, that actually comes after you know that you're not actually that unworthy, or you're not,
Mm.
that good for nothing thing is not there.
Yeah.
That happens when you know that yes, you can do the things.
Yeah.
Especially on the musical side of the things, that yes, as I said, like there are things which come very naturally, and I know I can. I'm not saying that there isn't room for improvement. I mean, there is a huge room for improvement, but knowing that I can do those things and still not being able to do those things could get really frustrating.
Mm.
It could get very, uh, very dark at times, especially when you also know that it's not something related to that musical aspect of the things. It could be probably, the I would say the technical aspect is something which pulls me down a lot. Um, and on top of that, I would say rather than the audience, I have a lot many complaints with the fellow music fraternity. Um,
Mm.
right, so I have more of those
Where
tantrums
did
towards.
your
So I have
yeah.
more tantrums towards directed towards the music fraternity, because it could be those small things which you might be struggling at, right? It
Mm.
could be that small hint, let's say, regarding the softwares or something which you might not know, and it's going to take probably somebody, some effort and some time on their part, obviously, which I greatly respect. But not many people are willing to do so, because
Yeah.
I mean they are not entitled to, because you're not good of anything, to them. So that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be uh, helping each other out. I mean, and that has played a big role in terms of turning me into the kind of person I would say I am. It has made me in a way a more kinder person,
Mm.
because there isn't much I can do in terms of how people are gonna treat me, but
Yeah.
there is definitely I can do how I end up
Treating them.
looking because the sides end up changing quite frequently, right? There could be somebody who is even at a much beginner stage than I am, and they might be coming up to me and asking me, "Hey, how did you record that thing? How did you do that?" Um, and I have consciously been making that effort that if somebody reaches out to me on, let's say, Facebook or Instagram, even if I can, ignore everything else, messages of my friends that, hey, let's get together and catch up. I'm pretty bad at responding all of that. But if I end up seeing somebody reaching out to me, hey, how did you, something which shows that they want to learn something, um, I do make a pretty constant effort to let them know that, hey, this is what I did. This is a step. This is a software I
Yeah,
use. And generally, it's those very small things which they will eventually figure out even if I don't tell them.
yeah, obviously, but
But it makes
it's
a
like
huge
quicker. Yeah,
but it makes a huge difference in that person's life in terms of the learning experience.
yeah,
And secondly, I think there is this beautiful role which you're playing being part of their learning journey, which if you act like that insensitive person and you're like, I'm not gonna, that also exposes a lot many of your insecurities,
hmm,
right? A lot many people do not want to tell, probably they are insecure about the fact that they're not much confident about their ability as a musician, so they are trying to you could say cover it up by being insecure with these some of the technical know-how which they have and all of that, right? So I that's one thing which I am in a way very secure about, that I might not be able to create the best music, but what I can create, I know nobody can take that away from me,
yeah, for sure.
right? And sharing the knowledge about, let's say, the technical stuff is not gonna make anybody create the music like me. It will only help them create the music the way their experiences, their musical knowledge, their musicality would you know direct them towards. So that security needs to be there, that nobody can take that music side of the things away from me.
Yeah. So how did you get into the composing side, and who kind of helped you guide you, or who was that idol who's helping you right now?
I mean, as I said initially, the composition happened in a way as a mother of necessity, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Uh, uh, I think sometime around, it was brimming from a long time. As I said, obviously, I would pay a lot of attention to other aspects of the song apart from just the singing, which is actually the case a lot many of the singers miss out on. I mean, which is very natural also. And I remember one of my private lesson teacher back in 2018 sometime, uh, he told me that, Jasmine, do pay a close attention to the bass lines, especially if you want to improve your harmonic skills.
So, what are the bass lines, if you want to kind of elaborate?
I mean, let's give you a very. You have heard the song Chaiya Chaiya? Chale
Yeah,
Chaiya Chaiya.
yeah,
So when the song begins, pum, pum, pum,
mm,
pum, 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 pum. Remember that
okay,
that melody comes,
yeah,
right? Or that song, famous song, Dil Chahta Hai has that.
yeah,
That there is this that melody gets played on that bass line. Dil chahta hai tam bum bum bum, right? So those are the bass is an instrument actually, right? So
mm,
bass guitar is an instrument. I mean, obviously there are different kinds of bass. You could have
yeah.
a synthesized bass, you could have a drone kind of bass, uh, and all of that is there. So he told me to pay a very close attention to that, as that's the key to the harmonic world. That's what he said. And that also helped me a lot in terms of, improving my harmonic skills and all of that. And yeah, so as I said, all this was happening, but because nobody was giving me any song, right?
Yeah.
I would reach out to a couple of composers, um, even the people around me, who would be composing the songs and all of that. Uh, what would actually be the decisive factor back then, while we were in the university and all? If there is somebody who's a producer in the
Yeah.
around you, that person would want to have a singer on the project who has probably the gear to help them out,
Yeah.
who has the coolest gear in terms of, because and it made sense on the business side of the things, because they would reach out to a singer who has probably a cool mic and all of that stuff, who has a space to record and all of that, um, rather than that just the singing side of the things. So nothing was happening in terms of me getting a song. I was getting quite frustrated. I was getting quite suffocated. It's like I want to sing, right?
Yeah.
I want to be heard.
Yeah.
Um, so then I'm like, okay, fine. I will create my own song and sing it. Um, yes, it was not technically exactly what I wanted because coming from this background, um, that small city background, we have a lot of this craving for cinema and the music of cinema, right? Still, I would say a lot many Indians back in the small cities, particularly. I'm not talking about something like Delhi or Mumbai, but small cities where majority of the India resides, right?
Yeah.
They still consume 99% of the movie music.
Yeah.
Like the music has to be from the cinema.
Yeah.
Uh, so, obviously, while growing up, that was one of the dreams to be able to probably um, be a musician in cinema. Um, and when none of this was happening, I was like, okay, fine, I will create my own song,
Yeah.
write it. And also for the lyrics writing, also it happened in a very, the fact that it was a necessity.
Mm.
I couldn't even find any lyricist which would be willing to work with me because, again, you're nobody, you're nothing.
Yeah. You don't have the
Why would
experience.
somebody want to work with you? Which I understand uh, in a way. So I remember writing this first song back in 2020.
Yeah.
I mean, I started, the composition came up to me in 2019, and, I was probably driving and it just hit me. Some of the experience I had, personal experience, which sort of uh, inspired me in a way to write that melody. But then I did not have any lyrics on it until like 2020. And then pandemic came
Yeah.
and we were all locked inside. And I was like, fine, I need to finish that up. Uh, the song would have happened even if I would have written the lyrics on it because I already got a friend of mine who writes in Tamil
Mm.
to write Tamil lyrics for it. So it's funny, the song was firstly completed in Tamil, and then I ended up writing it in Hindi also.
Oh.
The song has not been released even till today. Another aspect, because you don't know anything about how to release it. You don't probably have the funds to release it. Uh, Everything requires resources, right? And
Yeah.
I know it came out pretty decent. I don't want to just throw it out.
Yeah. Of course.
And your bunch of your relatives come and comment on it. Oh yeah, good thing your friends, nice, and that's it. So I don't want to do that to that song. So I never released it till now, which is another stupid thing I would say because I don't know what's bad, just putting it out or uh, never putting it out.
Yeah.
So that's how the composition aspect of the songs started happening. Uh, for the interest in film scoring, I would say I mean, again, growing up without even realizing that, what this thing, I was pretty bad with the terminologies because there wasn't
Yeah.
nobody, telling me what this thing is called. To me, it would all be, you know, the music, or I would call even the background score as songs, the song without, vocals in it. Um and I remember paying a lot of close attention to, the scores of the the movies I would end up watching. A lot of it was predominantly Indian movies
Yeah.
because I wasn't exposed to much of the world cinema earlier on. Also, um, simply because of the fact that both my parents do not speak English, uh, so there wasn't much of a culture of let's say watching non-Hindi movies at
Yeah.
home. Um, but then this thing happened sometime when I was like, I would say 2005 6. I got very much influenced by the music of the South.
Mm.
Um, A.R. Rahman played a big role in that. A couple of other big, I would say, movies I watched, and I was very inspired with, the different sounds and all of that. I was very, I would say, to me, it was very fascinating.
Mm.
That
Did you always wanted to get into music?
actually, no, there was a time when I ran away from music.
Oh.
Um, because my father is, you know, he's a priest,
Mm.
and I'm someone who runs away from religion like anything, right? Probably because I've seen the reality of it, I've seen it too closely, right? So um, it's like I know how much of a big scam all of that is. Um, Pretty controversial opinion, right? So you can chop it off in that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so because he's a religious singer, so I remember when 6, 7 years 8 old me started singing at the school events and all of that, and I had a lot of interest in music. Like musician was inside me. I would pay a
Yeah.
lot of attention to the music, and I would love to perform and all of that as a singer. Not love to perform. I was not so bad, not so good with the performing side of the things, but I would love to sing.
Yeah.
Um until all of my teachers would give me this compliment, oh, he's gonna become like his father. They would give a compliment, but this rebel inside me was there even when I was like 7, 8 year old. And I was like, I don't want to become that.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into that religion side of the things and all of that. So to me at that time, music was that religious music. That was the whole definition of music. So I sort of ran away from music.
No,
Sort
because
of
you
distanced.
only thought that was it, what music was.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the world was quite limited as a
Yeah, yeah.
child. So I sort of distanced myself from it for a while. I stopped. My father tried to convince me quite a lot to learn, and I would run away from, I was like, I don't want to learn. But I was listening to a lot of music.
Yeah.
You know, uh, Nobody could take that away from me. So all those years when I was not even learning, I was not thinking to become a musician, I was listening to a lot of music. I was that odd kid in the class. If you go on a class picnic or anywhere the school would take you, my teachers would complain to my parents that he is this loner kid, sitting somewhere alone with his those we had that cassette
Yeah,
uh,
Walkman?
Walkman.
Yeah.
He would be just into that, all of the kids are playing and all of that, so he is away from the group. So I used to get these kind of complaints from my teachers. Um, until sometime I would say in 2008 or 9. Uh, and I need to say thanks to that first crush I would say I had.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was like, this person is so amazing. She's so smart and all of that. Um, she's the topper in the class and she's good at, everything. What am I good at? Why would she even look at me? So I remember initially I thought I will become a cricketer. I went to the cricket nets uh, without having any sort of that talent, that cricketing talent, and all of that. Uh, I went to the nets, and I think for that 1.5 month, I gave my try. The ball pretty much hit me every part of my body
Ow.
except for the bat.
Ow.
And at one final day on the nets, I think it hit me somewhere here, and I was like, dude, that's done. Before it's like, something pretty bad. I cannot do that. And I think sometime around those days, I was humming at home some song, and my father heard it. And because I had listened to a lot of music, right? So,
Yeah.
couple of those things I ended up learning just by listening.
Mm.
Those articulations as a vocalist and all of that stuff. So he was like, in he said that in Punjabi that you sing so nicely. Why don't you learn? That's gonna make it even better. And me also with that sort of entitlement of
Yeah.
being a child, and I was like, then why don't you teach?
Mm.
And he was like, yeah, sure, let's start from tomorrow. And that's how it started. And once I got deeper and deeper into it, I mean, the crush left. That you know, that's another story for some other day. But uh, music stayed through all the thick and thins, and I remember I was that stubbornness of mine would at times be very helpful. So I used to be very stubborn that I want to sound like those
Yeah. Yeah.
professionals. Even though I would, hear back from my father or, from my friends that it's okay, they are in that trade from so long, or there is a lot of technological stuff which goes on at the back and all of that. So, be a little bit easy on you. But I was like, no, I want to sound like that. So I would
Yeah.
listen to a lot, experiment a lot, how I could do that, how I could do that. And yeah, through that I started singing, performing. Performance aspect of it was a bit tough for me because being that
Introvert.
introvert, as I said, like, I would be that loner kid in the class sitting alone. Even if I would be singing, I would sing in the moments when I would know there is nobody around.
Mm.
Could be either, riding my scooty and I know it's too much noise outside that anybody could even hear me. Um, I would sing in those moments. Um, but slowly I learned the trade of that you just have to go on to the stage thinking that nobody knows anything.
Yeah.
So even if you make a mistake, until you show it, nobody else is gonna be able to figure it out. Uh,
And then I just saw a quick video of you shared this composer Alok Nanda Das Gupta. So you
oh
made
yes,
a
that project which we did for
yeah.
her. Um, so Alokananda Dasgupta is uh, so she's this gem of a composer from back in India. She's composed for Sacred Games, Breed, quite recently Ghibli and all these amazing series and all. And on top of that, she's my senior from York.
Hmm.
So it's actually very. Sometimes I look back and how the things end up being. I think sometime in 2020, April of 2020, when we all were locked,
Yeah.
when we all were in the lockdown, um, I did not watch Sacred Games or even Breathe or Layla, one of her other series, when they were released. uh, I would say throughout that whole decade of 2010s and all of that, I missed out on Bollywood pretty much because I was a lot much occupied with Tamil and Malayalam cinema. So when this lockdown happened, we all had a lot of time and all of that. So I ended up exploring all these series, and the score of Sacred Games just grew on me, and I'm like, wow, this is something super amazing. So I googled, I found a name, and that's one thing, where the moment some musicians' work hits me very strongly, I just go and check that out. Something which we all should do, I feel. And until that point, I was like, yeah, that's amazing. Then I moved on to watching like Lela,
Yeah.
and there is this one quality of I would say a composer which I dearly admire is when they have this signature that without even knowing that it's them, you know by listening to the music that it's them. Um,
Oh,
and for a long time, like that was the quality I used to find very. I mean, it was a rare quality, and I used to find that a lot in A.R. Rahman. While growing up as a kid, you could tell that that's A.R. Rahman's music, and that's. So when I heard Laila's score, and I was like, it sounds like her. That just sounds like her. And I went on to Google and I searched, and it was her. Then, and it happened in that chronological order. I watched Breathe afterwards, and again the same thing. And I'm like, it again sounds like her. Um, and it was again her. So I ended up messaging her back then, that hey, I loved your score and all. But obviously there wasn't any communication channel, so I don't think that message even reached up to her until I would say 2020 February sometime,
hmm.
when I did a cover of one of her song, which she heard and she liked it. Uh, that opened that sort of that communication channel.
Yeah, opened up.
So she knew that somebody like me exists and right here in Toronto. Uh, and also, when I was exploring her music, coming across her journey was another inspiring factor, and something which helped me, you know, uh, take music even more seriously,
Yeah.
especially in those times when I was still thinking, when all these people around you, or you know, you're hitting 25, and what you're gonna be doing, all of that stuff. And I'm like, no, I want to study music and all of that. And yes, I know I'm at that age number, but that's okay. That's,
Yeah.
your relatives would be like, that's your second bachelor's and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What's the point of it and all of that. But I wanted to do it. So in those terms, not just her music, but even her journey inspired a lot. And then all of a sudden, I auditioned for, Berkeley, Humber, and York to
Yeah.
do a degree. Got into all these three, and obviously, Berkeley has this brand name and all of that.
Yeah.
I want to go to Berkeley, but then here's the thing: the fees of Berkeley is like 45,000 USD per
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
I got this roughly $18,000 scholarship, like 8,000 from Berkeley and 10,000 from the Berkeley Indian Ensemble. But still, it was a lot for me to figure out. I'm the only earning member in the family. So I tried my best to reach into, to go into Berkeley, did all sorts of crazy stuff like, busking in -10, -15, -20, trying to raise funds. And I was able to reach there last year, May, at Berkeley. But then I ran out of funds like a month later. Like I could barely survive for a month probably.
Mm.
And luckily I kept York as a backup,
Backup. Yeah.
which was supposed to start from September. And I came to York, started my degree, but I think uh, this Berkeley thing was the first, I would say, compromise I ever made in my life, because despite coming from this typical low middle class background and hearing this a lot, that हमारी पहुंच के बाहर है, it's outside of our reach, it's outside of our
Yeah.
financial, from my parents, from friends, relatives, being told by some of the relatives, look at your parents, they are going through a lot, and here you are thinking about becoming a musician, trying to give you those guilt trips and all of that. And I still was very stubborn, and never, I think, I knew that I have to be that go-getter in order to make
Yeah,
things work
yeah,
out for me,
yeah,
because it's not the normal scenario for me. I
yeah.
have to, and that's what derived me to go out and stand in -20 and sing,
Mm.
because I knew there isn't any
Easy path to get there.
either I can make peace with the fact and give up on it, and and then either that's that thing. So, but this Berkeley thing was just too much for me to probably win. And until then I had been able to somehow uh, get to everything I wanted somehow. And people
Yeah,
would
it just worked out
always
in
be
your
like,
favor.
that somehow this guy makes it happen,
Yeah, yeah,
even if it would take a lot of you know messy routes and all of that. But that Berkeley thing was just, I was too small in front of that,
mm,
to put it that way. So I came to York, I started, and I wasn't having that spark, to be very honest, in the very first month. I was like, yeah, I ended up choosing the backup. I ended up
yeah.
taking a
All these thoughts.
compromise.
Yeah,
And obviously, if you have done engineering degree, you're like, I can get a piece of paper anyway.
mm,
Passing in the exams is not something, which is, but that, that zeal to learn, that spark was somewhat missing in that first month of September, the moment I started there. Until all of a sudden I get a message from her that she would be coming here
oh wow.
to Toronto. And I was quite, excited and looking forward to it. Uh, and around the same time, I covered a second song of hers, and she loved it, and that further, uh, opened that communication channel. And I requested her if I could, meet her when she's gonna be here, and to which I'm thankful that she agreed. Uh, but when she was here, I would say I was quite nervous, quite
Yeah,
scared.
obviously, yeah. You're meeting your idol, in a way.
Not just that part. I mean, obviously there is somebody you look up to, and whose name I took pretty much, I think, in all those three auditions, Berkeley, Humber, York. York professors knew my admiration for her even before I entered York,
Oh wow.
through the audition video, because in that I mention about her, and
Hmm.
they ask you who are the musicians who inspired you and all. Um, and I so, but apart from that, there was this other thing. I was also, as much as I was looking forward to meeting her, I was also pretty scared too. Scared for the fact that my past experiences in terms of meeting the people whom I used to look up to were not really good.
Hmm.
Uh, People generally aren't very nice. Like people,
Yeah.
they end up reminding you of your place. They end up putting you down. Um, and some incidents happened, and I remember my friends telling me never meet your heroes and all of that stuff. But so yeah, um, that all of that was there, and I went to meet her. Um, and in fact, the first meeting was very much on, in just like, let's say a usual, you're a struggling musician, you're going to meet somebody you look up to, somebody who is such an amazing musician. It was having all those, some of those expectations, also probably, being able to sing a song for her someday. Um, Also, there's this funny thing that happened in between. So, sometime in May or April, I remember I ended up hearing from her manager.
No.
Uh, Somewhere probably, in her, because I used to, send my demos and all to the composers and all.
Hmm.
So probably her manager got my email, and I ended up hearing back from the manager that we are looking for an assistant for her.
Hmm.
Um, and that was also some big opportunity which I would say I was looking forward to in a way, which just came my way, but there was this condition in that there was this eligibility criteria that you have to be well versed with Logic, which is one of the softwares which we use
Yeah.
for music production and all. And at that time, I wasn't. I wasn't on Mac platform and all. And being that introvert, somebody who has heard so many rejections, somebody who has, I was like, shoot, I'm gonna be rejected even on this. So I didn't even apply. This is sometime back in, I remember May when I ended up hearing from her manager. So out of all that, I didn't even apply, even though I wanted to. That would have been some beautiful opportunity.
So, do you have like the skills set now, or what
I
happened
mean,
to
I
that?
obviously improved a lot on Logic and all. I moved to that platform later on and all of that. Also, I think as a musician, I improved a lot. I mean, again, whether I have that skill set or not, that I don't think I could be the judge for that. Um, there is only it's a learning curve, right? So yeah, I mean, that first meeting was with particularly with those kind of things in mind. You know, um, I even remember I ended up asking one of my friend that whether I should ask her about that that assistant opportunity, that if it's still on or something. And my friend was like, Abhi in Hindi, she said like, Abhi, just go meet. So with all that super nervousness, that planning and all of that, I went to meet her, and I would say I was taken aback by this sheer kindness this person had, and the way she treated me, uh, from being scared to to somehow uh, trying to stop my hands from shaking. I remember, and getting more comfortable about being able to talk. Uh, but still, on the very first meeting, it was very much about look like meeting somebody whom you admire musically. There wasn't something in terms of how I admire, how, let's say, as a person.
Mm.
Until the second time when I met her, which was when she came to give a guest lecture at York. I was taken aback by the sheer kindness, compassion, and this genuineness this person had, right? And I think that's what separates an artist from just being good at your craft.
Mm.
Just being good at your craft does not make you an artist. You have to be a sensitive person. You have to be a kind person. You have to be a good person to be an artist. And I very clearly remember, because that friend of mine told me, "Ki Abhini, don't ask her on the very first meeting." I remember before meeting her the second time, I went with all the you know somebody who overthinks, who gets nervous. I practiced at home. I'm like, how I'm gonna ask her. I wrote this sort of like a speech in my head, that hey, this opportunity came my way,
Yeah, I
and
understand.
um, would love to be on that. If someday that assisting role comes again, so keep me in mind, and all of those things. I just went into. But the moment I realized, um, you know, this very caring, very compassionate side of this person, I just could not ask her
Yeah.
that. Even though I remembered, like, she asked me, like, hey, what do you want to become? She was very kind. She was very, sometimes that one validation we are craving for from somebody we look up to, that place, that life, that day and night of a difference in us, right? Um, but I just could not answer that when she asked me that also. And it also sort of, there is actually, it's actually a very much deja vu of of sort of a similar incident which happened when back in 2016 I walked into this country for the very first time. Uh,
Mm.
I remember, I used to look for the jobs because, I was putting up in Brampton after I got mugged and all. And I was putting up in Brampton at my friend's place because that was the only thing I could afford. And after that, factory shifts and all of that, I would travel all the way to Toronto pretty much every day because
Mm.
eventually I wanted to find a job here, like, at restaurants and all. So I would deliver
Yeah.
my resumes and all to the restaurants. And I came to East York side on O'Connor Drive. There were a couple of restaurants there. And I got so used to hearing no, rejections and all of that. It was very frustrating and all of that. It was very demotivating sometimes.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
start questioning your own self. Probably you're not good for something.
Yeah.
And I remember giving my resumes on that whole street and hearing no from everybody. Also with that very unwelcoming face from all of, I don't know, oh
Yeah.
no,
Of
we are not
course.
looking for anybody.
Oh my God.
And and there was this one last restaurant across the street. So I was like, chalo, okay, if we have heard no from everybody, let's hear no from them also. So with that mindset that they are also gonna say no, I went into that restaurant, and the moment I opened the door, the way the owner greeted me,
Just that
and
energy, that vibe, I guess.
it was like, "Hello, welcome," and
Yeah.
I am Mr. Martin, that restaurant owner. Uh, the way they greeted me, I think I quickly folded my resume, put it in my pocket, and I'm like, I'm not gonna, you know, I cannot afford to see that unwelcoming face here. I'm not gonna um, talk about this job at here at all. And I did not even ask them. I just went, and the cheapest thing in the restaurant was, in any cafe, is coffee. Like, can I have a coffee, please? And now when I look back, I'm like, how all of this, why you would on, why you would want to do this, or why you would end up doing this. When I think about it, it's probably, one, when you're overwhelmed by that gratitude, when that one thing which you have been craving for so much, that compassion and that care, you don't want to probably, I mean, the person has already given you so much.
Yeah.
How
Yeah. Yeah.
how can you ask for
Ask even from.
something
Yeah.
else, right? You're just overwhelmed by that gratitude. Uh, Secondly, it could also be, that, as I said, you start doubting yourself. Probably there's something wrong with you. That everybody is rejecting you. So probably you're not good at your work. Probably you're not a good musician. Probably you're not good for anything. So uh, just because somebody has shown that compassion to you doesn't mean that you have to put them in that spot where they have to accept you as a musician.
Yeah.
It comes from that feeling of care that maybe this person deserves, you know, uh, they don't deserve to hear, they don't deserve to, be put in that spot where they have to, just because they're kind to you, they have to, um, yeah. Probably, a lot of overthinking goes on in my head. But, and thirdly and lastly, but not the least, you're probably scared of getting rejected again.
So, with those in mind and things like that, what would you say in your own words what limitless or having that mindset means to you?
I would say that mindset to me, I don't think I can change that. I mean, again, if it's just a very professional equation I have with anybody, no worries. I do. I mean, I wouldn't mind getting rejected. But to me, relationships are something I value very dearly. I respect them a lot. To me, that expression of care is something very dear to me. And when somebody shows that to me with that true genuineness, I think I can even give my life for that person, right? So, to be very honest, I mean, that's just who I am, and I also do not want to change that because probably that's what derives drives that creative side of me. And also on ethical terms, I find it very much right that it comes from that my own feeling of care for that person also, because I don't want to put them in a spot where they have to accept me, right? Where just because they might think of me as a good person, doesn't mean they have to think good of me as a musician also, or as a, let's say in that restaurant case, they have to think good of me as a good worker also in that restaurant. So I do not want to put somebody who is very dear to me in that spot, right? So I think that's what that mindset probably goes on. Also, I'm an overthinker. Let's be very honest onto that, because some, I would say, months later down the lane, when I talked to Mr. Martin about that incident, I told him, I'm like, when I first came to the restaurant, when you said, when I had coffee and all, and he remember, he's like, yeah, I was like, I came for a job, and they sort of laughed, and because they had become pretty good friends with me, so they said that we actually used to talk with each other that why this fella does not ask us for a job, because we used to think that he's a very nice kid and all, he would be good for the restaurant and all. um, so that's what they ended up telling me back then. But I think that first reason which I said, that getting overwhelmed by gratitude, it's also very important, because generally we end up only asking for, we keep on asking, but we never say gratitude for whatever that person has already done to us. And I think being caring and being compassionate is something which a lot many of us are not used to from other people. So that just that's something which I hold very dear to me. So yeah, when all of that happened, she went back to India. So coming back to the main story, so she went back to India, and I I would say I was very touched, and I was like, there's something I need to do, right? There is something special needs to be done, and then I ended up putting together that
Demo. The
the project
the
which you
cover. Yeah.
ended up hearing, the covers which I did of her songs, because those are the melodies which are beautiful and something which, again, very close to me personally. So I felt, people need to hear these ones, and also there was this very much of an emotional aspect to it, uh, that bringing together some of the York uh, alumni, some
Yeah.
of the York professors, which was another honor for me personally. Ended up learning a lot working on it. And I think that was also the sort of validation I was seeking out from myself, that I couldn't be this much worthless, right?
No.
There must be something I could do, and um, getting to arrange all that stuff. And people were actually surprised. I mean, that tells you a lot about how much I put myself down, and how much, or how much actually people, uh, you know, I would say, how getting underestimated feels like.
Mm.
Uh, so a lot, many of them they were like, "Oh, you wrote that? You wrote those, arrangements and all of that?" And I'm like, "Yeah," uh, which is also surprising for a lot many people. So it was also another, as I said, a validation I was seeking out. And on top of that, I decided to release it on the date um, of
Her
her
birthday or
father's.
something?
Huh?
Her birthday or something?
It was her father's birthday.
Oh, okay.
Who is, who's a legendary filmmaker, Buddhadev Dasgupta, and I know how much she loves him. So I was like, that's one, thing I need to do. And also because we lost our parent at the same time, I lost my mother a month before she lost her father back in 2021. So there was this another relation of, you could say, the grief. So yeah, that whole thing ended up happening, and I'm very thankful for that. Um, Probably the one thing I would say, which is gonna be a very comforting thing to me, that project, when I'm gonna be having my last moments, and all of this is gonna flash in front of my eyes. I'm pretty sure, despite um, every other thing which has been a failure, it would be a very comforting thing that at least there was one thing I was able to do right. Uh,
Wow, amazing, Jasmine.
so that
Thank
was
you for the
that.
amazing conversation. It's great having you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ivan. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for listening to episode 65, The Importance of Expressing Care, with Jaasmaan Rathore.